On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder finally beat the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to recap that game again. Plus, who should the Thunder want to win on Wednesday, Houston or Golden State? And now that it's in its second season, heading to Vegas, is the NBA Cup working?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder knocking off the Dallas Mavericks, punching their ticket to Vegas to take on the winner of tonight's game, Golden State and Houston. We are recording this in the afternoon on Wednesday, so we don't know who has won yet, but we will have a preview for you on Friday once we do know the winner. But we're going to discuss it all with Bandon Rahbar at Bandon Rahbar on Twitter, dailythunder.com, 1077 The Franchise, KREF, OKC Dream Team, where we had a fun pod last night. Brandon, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Last night was a lot of fun. It was cool. We got almost a playoff-like atmosphere in Oklahoma City in the middle of December. So a really fun night at the Paycom last night.
It was an extremely fun night. And Joe pointed out, and we talked about it on last night's show, you only really get the ref you suck chant in the postseason. And you got that on Wednesday against Dallas. But these two teams, vastly familiar with one another. They went through a hard-fought playoff series that ended in 6 games with a 0-point differential. It was just a absolute battle. It turned into a genuine rivalry. I mean, Tig McMahon is still talking about what song the Mavericks played post-game in November. Like, this stuff is what the NBA is seeking. A rivalry like this that you can set your clocks to every time that they play. They're going to bring the intensity. And the Thunder finally got their win over Dallas. What were some of your biggest takeaways from Tuesday night?
My biggest takeaway was the Mavs have zero answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He got whatever he wanted. He had 39 points. He could have easily gone for 40 if he wanted to. I think that, last year in that playoff series against the Mavs, obviously the Mavs win that very close on one play away from a Game 7 in OKC. But despite Luka being an incredible player, top 5 player in the world, besides Kyrie, an all-time great, Shai was the best player in that series. And then in this matchup last night, which was a playoff-like atmosphere, as we said, Shai was the best player on the floor last night. So I think the biggest takeaway was Shai and how special he was. I think my next biggest takeaway was the Thunder defense. Even without Chet Holmgren, even against this Dallas Mavs team that have a lot of offensive fireworks, elite defense from this team. And that is what's going to make this team so hard to beat, not only in the NBA Cup, but in the NBA playoffs as well.
I think that whenever you look at the Thunder, Shai is, of course, the head of the snake, and he was spectacular. Luka talked glowingly about him post-game and talked about how he's a guy you got to send 2 or 3 players to defend, but then he gets his teammates involved. And I thought that Shai really controlled that game in a big way. Like, he was a steadying presence for this Thunder team. You know how he's capable of getting to his spots. And Brandon, if he's going to shoot 5 for 9 from 3, like, you can put the kids to bed in every single game that happens. The Thunder are going to win when he's able to shoot like that. And it just so happened that they won fairly convincingly. I mean, we got Dwight Powell minutes at the end of this game. Brendan Carlson was out there. So it was a pretty decided game in the fourth quarter after Dallas made a run. I think that the Thunder's ability to answer runs has been what stood out to me this season. I mean, you saw the Pelicans make a late comeback and the Thunder still won by double digits. Dallas gets it down to 9 in this game, similar to the Pelicans, and Dallas has more firepower than New Orleans does, and yet they still were able to answer. They answered the 8-0 run to start this game. I think that comes with, of course, coaching and the players themselves, but also experience of, like, you've gone through a playoff series loss. You've seen the pictures of how the sausage is made, so to say. And I just think that they're better equipped this year to go on runs of their own, and basketball is a game of runs. And so that's really a prerequisite to winning a championship.
Yeah, this team is very resilient and tough. And a lot of times when another team goes on a run like that and they have that sort of momentum, the team that's ahead a lot of times kind of folds, and you just kind of see it happening in real time. You see it happening before it's even, taking the lead over. But this Thunder team, when one team punches back, they always have a counter. And last night, we saw it at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Isaiah Joe hit that crazy leaning shot at the buzzer from the Alex Caruso. He dove on the floor, punched the ball out. Joe hits a three at the buzzer, and the Thunder take a 17-point lead. And it just kind of felt like the game was over at that point. Like the crowd goes bonkers. It was like a playoff game in there. 17-point lead going into the fourth quarter. But then Shai sits, and in those first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, Dallas outscores them 14-7. So all of a sudden it's a 10-point game, 9 minutes left, and you feel a little bit of nervousness, anxiousness in the building. And Shai comes in much earlier in the fourth quarter than he usually does. He usually comes in at like the 5 or 6 minute mark of the fourth quarter. But because I think it's the NBA Cup and because it's the Mavs, Shai checks back in early, immediately hits a three, and it felt like the Thunder were back in control from there on out, and they countered, they weathered that punch, and end up winning by 14 points.
Yeah, and I think that to your point about their defense, that helps in a big way. I mean, when you look at how they defended Luka Doncic, I think that it's going to be natural for people today to look at his stat line and just kind of poke fun at Luka, but it wasn't necessarily a Luka problem. Like, yes, he should have been able to shoot better than 5 for 15, but the Thunder deployed the same strategy that by Luka standards, like Luka was still really good in the playoffs, but by Luka's standards, he wasn't otherworldly because of how the Thunder hound him. They pick him up with high ball pressure near the timeline. They're blitzing him and hedging on every screen. They are just focused on getting the ball out of his hands. Now, that 8-0 run was sparked by Luka making fantastic reads, like the skip pass he made from the top of the key all the way to the deep corner for an open three. He was able to find Derek Lively on short rolls, and Lively is a really good passer for a big man to get quick decision-making out of his hands, which, again, was a part of that 8-0 run. But the Thunder did the same formula, and that formula was very much lamented by Thunder fans in the postseason, even at times during this game whenever Dallas was going on their runs. But it is what works, frankly. I mean, because you don't become Western Conference champions, and you don't become the second straight year of a one seed for the Thunder without being an extremely good team. And so you're going to have to pick your poison of kind of laying out a pecking order of what's most likely to happen. Well, the very most likely thing to happen with these two teams is that if you leave Shai one-on-one and you leave Luka one-on-one, they're going to go for 35 plus. So then that's out. You have to kind of try to cut them off the best you can. That's where you see them sending pressure to Luka. No PJ Washington tonight. That certainly hurt Dallas because not only is he able to cash in those skip passes from Luka whenever he gets the ball out of his hands from pressure, but when you're sending Hartenstein and Caruso and Dort and Kaysen and even J-Dub to Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, that leaves a smaller defender on PJ, which goes back to their November game. Whenever PJ, for as a career night as he had, and people can look at that box score and think that the Thunder just left him wide open and didn't care, he shot 3 open shots in November. But he took advantage of smaller matchups that were had to being played on him because of the ripple effects of their defense. So that was a big loss for Dallas. But in general, you're going to have to let the Dallas Mavericks get something. It's impossible in the modern NBA with how scoring is, how the offense is, to just shut everything completely down. The Thunder shut down Luka Doncic, and from there, no one else really beat you. I mean, Najee Marshall was fantastic in this game. Omax gave them really good minutes for the 12 minutes that he was in there, but you'll sign on the dotted line for only 4 field goal attempts from Lively and 4 field goal attempts from Gafford. I think that that's a missed opportunity for Dallas whenever you saw them put Hartenstein up high and leave that roll to the rim open and only having Caruso down there to contest. But it's a testament to Caruso. That's a key fix from last year, because last year, you're having like Josh Giddey down there. on the roller, and that's going to lead to massive numbers from Gatford and Lively, and it did. It worked out in a big way. You had Kenrich Williams back as a small ball 5. That helped in a big way compared to last year where he was not in the playoff rotation. So I just think that the defense, it was the same plan, but the roster is able to maximize that plan. And I think that's the best game plan against Dallas.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of concern for leaving PJ Washington open in that playoff series and all the open looks he got, but it was sound strategy because, like you said, would you rather, Luka and Kyrie take those shots? They did such a good job, I think, on Luka and Kyrie and funneling, the shots that they wanted to give up. Because if you look at, PJ Washington splits, even on his open corner 3-point shots, like he shot out of his mind, so much above his averages in the November matchup and then also in the playoff series. And then, like you said, Najee Marshall played really well in this matchup, but I still think that the strategy is sound. And to your point, I think that the Thunder, even more so this season and in a potential playoff series this season, have the better personnel to match up against the Mavs. Because not only do you have Hartenstein in the mix now. So now you have a 7-footer to match up with the Mavs 7-footers, for 48 minutes when the Thunder get Chet back. But you're able to defend the perimeter a little bit better as well because you're not having to worry so much, especially in the non-Chet minutes, about the bigs. And so you're able to kind of, defend the perimeter better. You have Lou Dort who you can put on Luka. Case and Wallace did an excellent job on Kyrie Irving last night. You have Alex Caruso. You got J-Dub, who his size, I think, fits PJ Washington in a potential matchup, like his length. So I think the Thunder are more equipped, adding Caruso and Hartenstein to the mix in a potential series down the line against the Mavs.
I cannot wait to see these two teams face off in a future date. And I really cannot wait for these two teams to be fully healthy. Like, get PJ back for Dallas, get Chet back for the Thunder, and let's see where they really stack up because each team was missing a pretty significant, portion of their team. I know that like Thunder fans will cringe at the sight of comparing PJ to Chet. They're of course not at the same skill level. Like Chet is head and shoulders above PJ Washington from a skill standpoint, but from a product of what the Thunder are forcing Dallas to do, that elevates the status of PJ Washington, as you saw in the postseason. And even though he's proven it wrong in the sense of he's had career nights against OKC, I still think that you tip your cap to PJ. And if he's going to be the one that beats you, that Luka and Kyrie will. But you don't know for a fact that this career night stuff from PJ can keep going. You've got to kind of play the averages a bit. And the Thunder played the averages against Dallas Tuesday, the exact same formula that people were complaining about, and they got a big win over Dallas. Coming up, let's talk tonight's showdown between the Warriors and Rockets. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Gametime. Brandon, I think Gametime is the very best ticketing app for NBA fans because they have the last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And NBA fans, that the injury reports come out. Brandon and I tweet them out. We put them out there for you, and 5 guys are questionable. Perhaps the reason you want to go to the game, that player is questionable. You can wait it out and get the official designation before you buy and still get the last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Gametime is so confident that they have the lowest prices, they're going to give you 110% of the difference. You get a panoramic view from your seat. You have probably never been to the T-Mobile Center in Las Vegas. I've only been to the Kansas City one. And so you might need a panoramic view from your seat if you're heading to Vegas to watch this team play. They have all-in pricing. When you toggle that feature on, it gives you the exact total right up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Go download the Gametime app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast and the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joined today by Bandon Rahbar, at Bandon Rahbar on Twitter, 1077 The Franchise, dailythunder.com, KREF. Brandon, it's the Cup. We've respected the Cup. The Thunder have gotten to the Final Four. They're heading to Vegas. Tonight, the Rockets and Warriors will face off. The listeners already know who won, but let them know if they should be happy or sad. Who of these two teams do you think the Thunder should want to play on Saturday?
I think the Rockets. I know that the Thunder lost that last Rockets game, but remember back to the first Rockets game, the Thunder dominated Houston. And to be clear, I think the Thunder are the better team, whether it's the Warriors or the Rockets. The Thunder are clearly the better team, but it's a one-game sample size. And in a one-game sample size at a neutral site with a playoff-like atmosphere, like, do you trust Steph Curry and Draymond Green and, their playoff and championship experience, or do you trust the young Rockets that largely depended on Fred VanVleet hitting 40-footers with a hand in his face at the shot clock buzzer to narrowly defeat the Thunder in Houston this last game? I think that the Warriors present, in a one-game sample size, the bigger threat. So I would say, if you're a Thunder fan, you're rooting for the Rockets. The Rockets have been impressive this season. They're much improved, and I respect what the Rockets are doing, but I think the Warriors present a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that both teams are going to be fun games, and I think that this is where the NBA really won, is that no matter what, the Thunder will play the Mavericks, and then either the Warriors and Rockets each presenting an interesting storyline. The Thunder, of course, the best team in the NBA, so it's going to be high-level basketball. But you're right. It's an elimination setting. There are stakes on the line. It's a one-game sample size. Steph Curry could absolutely change a game. I don't see on the Rockets side who could change a game to that level, obviously. And like Shai and Steph can each change a game in their own way, and they each, could create a game that is like a 1-point game decided at the buzzer. Even though Houston just beat Oklahoma City, I do believe that the Rockets don't pose as much of a threat to the Thunder as Golden State does, because you have that Curry, Draymond effect, and the role players too. Like, neither side is overjoyed. I think of the two, of course, Houston is way more happier with their role players right now than Golden State is. But I like Podziemski. I think that he could shake loose in a game, and I just think that there's more volatility to Golden State. But either way, I still like the Thunder in that matchup. And either way, I still think it'll be a game that's decided by 2 possessions or less.
And OU Sooners legend Buddy Hield, he started the season on a heater, and he was fantastic. He's, he hasn't been putting up the points that he was earlier in the season, but he's still, when you're looking at one game, sample size, Steph and Buddy shooting, and then, like you said, Jonathan Kuminga, you never know. Pods is a wild card. I just also think that as good as Houston has been, they're relying so much on their defense, which has been really impressive. But you're not really afraid of guys hitting big shots in their offense and kind of exploding for, 130 points like the Warriors may on any given night.
Yeah, and I think I also would like to see the Thunder play Houston just from a basketball standpoint, too, of that Rockets defense. You saw what they were capable of doing a couple Sundays ago in Houston. The defense can really test this Thunder offense, and that's a good thing. The Thunder need as many tests as they can get, whereas the Warriors, I just don't have a good enough feel on what they're gonna go into this game mindset-wise as. It's a trip to Vegas. That'll be fun. But they've won 1 billion championships, of their core. And like, if they get down, if the Thunder start on a 15-5 run, is it just curtains? Like, do they just not care? Are they going to still try to rally back? Whereas I think the Rockets will fight tooth and nail and really dig in defensively, and thus, Mark's favorite phrase, stress test the Thunder to the point where it's a better game, win or lose, long term for the Thunder to experience than a game against Houston, which can be hit or miss. A game against Golden State that can be hit or miss, because by the same token, if the Rockets just shoot 80% from 3 and they're just nailing contested shots, it doesn't quite, indicate anything. Like there's a chance the Thunder can play really good defense against Golden State and just throw their hands up because Steph is Steph. Whereas with Houston, I think if you're on your stuff, if you're playing to your identity and you're playing to your standard, you should beat Houston. That was similar down the stretch of Houston a couple Sundays ago. Whenever you got a lull offensively, it doomed you down the stretch of that season. How do you overcome that? I think it's also a better, like if you're trying to maximize the schedule, it's a better measuring stick against Houston because you just played them and you can quickly turn around and implement some of the stuff that you learned from that game and see where you're at, see if you're learning those lessons. So I think that that's another feather in the cap of Houston, but you guys already know who the Thunder are playing. We do not. But my official prediction is Golden State because the Rockets just can't beat Golden State. Like the stats are crazy, and they had their chance with no Steph, no Dre. There's just something about that game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Warriors will end up winning this game because, I mean, I looked at the last time the Rockets beat the Warriors, James Harden and Russell Westbrook were on that Rockets team. It's been that long. And like you said, if they couldn't beat them without Steph and without Draymond, I will say this, though, just for like the fun, the storyline, like the fireworks, Thunder Warriors is always fun. And SGA versus Steph, that's fun. Draymond and like the wild card of his antics.
Yeah, the Instagram barking beef.
Yeah, all
you
those
can't
things.
go wrong. The NBA can't go wrong with this.
Yeah, they really, really can't. It's so funny because the West bracket was basically kind of a who's who of Thunder rivals because you have the Mavs, who they played in the playoffs last year, and you have the whole SGA Luka thing. And then you have in the Texas Oklahoma thing. Then you have the Rockets. They were kind of like rebuilding era rivals. Dillon Brooks and what happened with that dust up with Team Canada teammates SGA and Lou Dort last game.
To one another.
Yeah. And then you got the Warriors, who historically, obviously, you don't have to say anything. Everybody knows about the Warriors and Thunder and their history and their rivalry. So I think either way, it's a lot of fun. I think matchup wise, you prefer the Rockets, but fun storyline wise, the Warriors would be a lot of fun, and it would be juicy as far as like, talking heads. And if you beat the Warriors, at least from a national perspective, it kind of means more. And especially if you end up beating like Luka, Steph, and then like one of like Giannis or like, Jalen Brunson and the Knicks in the final, that's a really fun NBA Cup trip.
Coming up, let's talk NBA Cup. Is it working for the league? Will the Thunder raise a banner and win the NBA Cup? We'll talk about it all coming up. First one to say right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. And right now, you can go there and tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. When you place your first $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game or you just want to project what's going to happen, you can do it at FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. If you're into the NFL, perhaps you want to fade Brandon's Cowboys, who are just terrible. But if you're only into the NBA, you can bet on basketball too, including in tonight's game where you have Golden State taking on the Warriors. The Golden State taking on the Rockets. Houston is 2.5-point favorites at home. On Thursday night, you have the Celtics 12.5-point favorites against Detroit over there at FanDuel.com. Go check them out today. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Brandon, the NBA Cup, year 2. I think that the NBA could not have drawn up a more perfect script for this. The Lakers and LeBron win it in year 1. They seem overjoyed with the win. They raised the banner like this historic franchise with billions of championship banners, billions of legendary, paraphernalia up there, like jerseys and division championship, conference championships, whatever. They raise the banner. They kind of make it a big deal. This year, we just went through the entire West, which has star-studded field, storylines out the wazoo. You have Giannis and Dame on the other side already advancing to the Final Four, either Trae Young and the Hawks or the new-look New York Knicks with the Villanova crew and Jalen Brunson and Cat, and those guys will be in Vegas depending on what happens in that game tonight. Like, I really think that if it is going to work, it was going to take these situations unfolding where it's LeBron and the Lakers in your face. Now it's these superstars in your face. Do you think that the NBA Cup is working?
I do. And I got to admit, like, I was skeptical last season when it was first announced. I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of like a traditionalist, like a purist, like, what happened to the game I love? Like old man on the lawn. Like, what are you doing to my game here? But it's been exciting. And I think, maybe the perspective from fans that, their teams are qualified for the NBA Cup and going to Vegas is maybe different from those who are not qualified for the NBA Cup and going to Vegas. But I think there's been an excitement from fans, from players. There seems to be almost like playoff atmospheres in December, as opposed to having to wait until April, May, and June. You get a little early preview when normally the attention to the NBA, there's always attention on the NBA, but right now they're competing with college football and the NFL. So you get a little bit of that playoff atmosphere right now. I think it is working, and I'm coming around on it. I am a fan right now. I wasn't so much a fan, so it's even working on me, who doubted at first.
Yeah, I think it's working because it can't hurt you. Like there's nothing about this that can really fail due to every game still counting in the regular season standings. So it's if you want to ignore this, you totally can. Outside of the Gotti courts and the new basketball, which I don't know why they even made a new basketball with the bracket on the ball logo that you can't even see on television, but they did it. Like besides that, you can just ignore this whole thing if you want to, and if you don't want to, then you can get kind of wrapped up in it and you can respect the cup and you can be doing standings and point differential breakdowns and get really into the weeds. And I think that it's working in the sense of the players care. And that's the biggest thing, because the more the players care, the more that fans will come around to liking it. And there's going to become a point like kids today only know the NBA Cup. Like there are some kids that started their NBA journey here recently. They only know that the cup is a thing. Like LeBron, their favorite player, maybe won it last year. This year, I mean, look around of who's still in contention. It's Trae Young, it's Jalen Brunson, it's Shai, it's Steph, and it's the Rockets. I mean, they don't have a true star, but who's still in contention? They all have some kid's favorite player is still going to win this cup, except for if the Rockets win. So like that identity can get tied up into it, to where the cup can really take hold of a younger generation, which is what it's really for. But the players, I think, have not been shy from every market, including the Thunders, which is typically pretty tight-lipped. But the players have not been shy in how much that this means to them and how different the games feel and how the cash money prize really matters to them. And you can see it night in and night out how much that these games mean.
Yeah, you really can. And I agree with you. The fact that the players care about it, it's going to trickle down to fans. And here's the deal. It is really hard to win an NBA title. One team out of 30 wins. So it's almost like a bonus banner you can hang. Like if your team, the Lakers obviously out in the first round last year, but they got to hang a banner last year. So it's like a little subtitle for the season, because it is really hard to win an NBA title. You can have a great team. You can be the 1 seed, but maybe in the playoffs an injury happens and you're not able to win the title. So the fact that you can win something else in the NBA season makes it kind of fun from that perspective as well.
I think that it's going to be fun. Brandon, when you look at this bracket, are the Thunder going to raise the banner of the NBA Cup championship this year?
Here's the deal, Rylan. They just took out their biggest threat in the West. The Mavs were the biggest threat in the West, and they took them out. So now you have the Rockets and the Warriors. They're clearly better than both of those teams. Given one game sample size, you never know. So I have them going to the NBA Cup Finals. Then you have the Hawks. They're better than the Hawks. You have the Knicks and the Bucks. The Bucks have been much, much better. I think the Thunder are better than Bucks. And the Knicks are a contender. They are, Rylan. But I think the Thunder are the best team left in this field. So I'm going to say, yeah, I think that they win it all. Now, one game sample sizes, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But if I had to choose one team to win this thing, I think the Thunder are the best team standing. So I will choose OKC to respect and to win the cup.
I like that. And then they raised the banner. I do. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I don't remember if it was on air or off air, but what song would you suggest that they play? I mean, we are the champions of the world for the NBA Cup seems a little strong.
It does seem a little.
That's the go-to for the banner. But he seems a little strong.
It is a little, and you want to save that. Like the Thunder have bigger goals in mind this season and for the next several seasons. So you want to save Freddie Mercury for that. I would suggest maybe something Oklahoma inspired.
Really? Okay.
Okie from Muskogee. Can you imagine if they played? Can you imagine if they played Okie?
That there would be endless meme potential from that. May I suggest Big in Vegas by Buck Owens?
That's a good one.
When I was young, I left my home and went away to Vegas. With my guitar and my dreams, I had to try to play and sing in Vegas. But my mama told me I was wrong, and she begged me to stay at home. But my will was strong, and I had to make it big in Vegas. They made it big in Vegas if they won the title, Brandon. And people complain. They said the NBA Cup shouldn't happen. They're all pessimistic. They think that the Thunder should have thrown the game Tuesday and had some mini camp. What buffoon would have said that? Don't look at the last podcast. They didn't want them to go to Vegas. And now here they are making it big in Vegas, like Buck Owens and his Buckaroos. I think it should be big in Vegas, and I'm going to run this to the highest flagpole that I have in the organization and demand it, as a matter of fact. Demand it.
Forget Buck Owens. I think that if they win it, they should just use that clip of you just there singing it, and that's what they play when they hang the banner in front of 18,203 people in the Paycom Center. Rylan Stiles.
That's a really, really, really good idea. You know what? Wait. I'll do it live. Like Bill O'Reilly. Brandon, this has been a lot of fun. We'll see if I can find the connections to sing big in Vegas at the Paycom Center, or at least have Buck Owens and his Buckaroos do it. Brandon, bucket, let's just do it live. Thank you for joining us. Check him out at Brandon Rahbar on Twitter, dailythunder.com, 1077 The Franchise. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.